1065? It's time now for Front Page Jacksonville, a show that delves into the issues that affect you. We believe in transparency and providing only the facts. And now, here's Octavius Davis.
We are on the back nine. Christmas has come and Christmas has went. It came and it went. And my question for you is, how deep in a hole are you financially? Huh? How hard did Christmas hit your pockets in 2024? What are we talking? $2, $3, $500, $1,000? What are we talking? How badly did Santa hit you with the ho, ho, ho? Well, I can let you know right now. At the Davis Shire, it was Christmas all year as far as we was concerned. Huh? Did you have a roof over your head all year? Were the lights on when you flipped the little switch? Huh? Was there groceries in the refrigerator when you opened up the door? Huh? Merry Christmas. Huh? Middle of April, Merry Christmas. September, Happy Hanukkah. Kwanzaa, all of it. As far as I'm concerned, we did not go out of our way this year to partake in what I refer to as the financial apocalypse. That's really what it is. Let's keep it a buck. That's really what the holiday season is all about, and really any holiday.
It's a racket.
Because I want to say before Halloween even settled in good, before Casper could even get the word boo out of his mouth, they already had Christmas trees and ornaments up in different stores. Why is that? Well, they was trying to get into your pockets before Black Friday because companies been in the red throughout the year. I mentioned on the show last week, online businesses are giving brick and mortar stores a run for their money. I'm talking about backdoor woodshed beatdowns is what's happening. Our son came to us and said, Daddy, can I get this here headset and this here guitar? Oh, boy, you better take a picture. Because we didn't spent on him because he's our last child, so to speak. Our oldest, they grown. You're an adult. You want Christmas, you go buy Christmas for yourself. You got a job. You go ho, ho, ho and splurge on yourself. But that 14-year-old we got at the house, no, sir. Because, see, you my people. I'll give you the rundown. I know you can relate because you're parents as well. So I shared with you a few weeks back that he made the basketball team. That wasn't cheap. Okay? There were physicals. And then there's a certain type of shoe that they needed to wear. And then there's all this other stuff, warm-ups and all this other stuff that they need for the team. You know, and we want him to feel like he's part of the team. You know, we knew on the front end there was going to be some financial obligations attached to it. Okay? So this was November. That was close to about $500-$600 just for that stuff. And then he was invited to a what is it called? A quinceanera? A quinceanera? It's something along those lines. If you're in the Hispanic or Latin community, I promise you I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just not familiar with the proper pronunciation. But he was invited to that. It's basically I think it's like a coming-of-age party for a young lady in the Hispanic community. And so he was invited to that, you know, him and his friends and everything. Well, guess what? It was a formal event. He needed a suit, and he needed a tie, and he needed. But Daddy came through because my boy needed it. And my boy had it. Took care of him. That was almost another $600. That was just 2 weeks ago, ladies and gentlemen, in the month of December. So guess what? Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. His mom bought him a PlayStation 5, in October? Boy, you had Christmas all year. Huh? And we never bought into, I'm going to whisper this because some of you may still do. And look, we listen, we don't judge, okay? But we never bought into the Santa Claus lie. We never bought into that. I refuse to disrespect myself and my hard work by saying some jolly somebody in the sky gonna bring. No, sir, ain't no intruders coming in here dropping our presents. No, this me and your mama. Our kids have known that from the giddy up. It's me and your mama. So I'm gonna need you to appreciate what has graced you all year, and don't think that just because it's a certain time of year, with the lights and the movies and the marshmallows and the food and the songs and the carols. Yeah, that's all fine and well. But rent due next week, y'all. January 1st is coming. Huh? Rent, mortgage, whatever it is. Look, them bills is coming. 3 days. 3 days? Yeah. Them bills coming up in 3 days. They don't care nothing about no cribma. Ain't no cribma discounts when it comes to them bills. No, ma'am, no, sir. We will not indulge in such activities. Even the grandbabies. Listen, baby, listen. Mama, grandma and pop been taking care of you all year. We ain't finna go out here and max out credit cards and overdraft bank accounts just for Christmas. No, we ain't doing that. Speaking of which, Chloe, her birthday is on New Year's Day. She's a New Year's baby. Oh, okay. You know, and she already talking to us about, my birthday. And I was, girl, you about to be 5. How are you articulating such demands already? Sheesh. But I hope you and your loved ones had a great Christmas. I got so much rest this past week. I'm talking about long overdue. I'm talking about the type of sleep where you wake up, you get something to eat, and you lay on back down again. And you wake up, you shake yourself, maybe a half-eaten chicken wing or something is to the right of you. Nibble on that a little bit, and then you nestle on down there and get some more sleep. Oh, it was glorious. I needed that rest this past week because I run so hard throughout the year. When Wanda, I know you can relate. Y'all know Wanda can relate. Wanda don't go home. Wanda is with you 7 days a week, 365 in the studio. I had to wheel her cot out the way so I can get here in front of the microphone because she's she's here so much. But that's how dedicated the Hot family is to make sure that you get all that you need from adult R&B to talk radio like what you got right now. Of course, after my show, you got Health Beat with who? Wanda P. She doesn't go home. It's all about the people. She does it for the people. But all joking aside, hope all has been well for you and your loved ones. Glad to be back once again. Throughout the show, I'll be covering different topics. During the 7 o'clock hour, we have a guest coming in as well. And at any point, you are indeed the special guest of the show. 833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump on Front Page Jacksonville. So, you know what? Let's go ahead and jump on into it. A couple of different topics. Let's start nationally first, and then we'll, bring it on home. So the inauguration hasn't even happened yet. Okay. And Trump is already meddling wherever he can meddle across a few different areas of politics. He's already attempting to, let his presence be known, which is odd because I'm 46. 18 is when I started voting. So I want to say the first election I can recall voting, it was Bush. Was that Bush and Kerry back in 2000? It may have been Bush and Kerry.
Maybe. It wasn't. Sorry, it wasn't Bill
Bill Clinton? No, it was Bush number 2.
Bush number 2,
oh, yeah,
correct.
I think that's right.
Yeah, Bush and Kerry, because the whole
right.
recount, thing came about. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I'm thinking back. I cannot ever recall in my short span of time participating in the presidential election where a presidential nominee begins trying to dictate and demand before they're even in office. What do he do that at? Well, in the latest efforts to Trump, he's now asking that the TikTok ban be postponed until he gets in office and, can assess the situation. Well, hold on. First of all, player, you the one that started this. You're the one who, I don't want to call it a witch hunt. I think that's a bit too strong. But you're the one who essentially began bringing up allegations against ByteDance. ByteDance is the parent company of TikTok. Speaking about security concerns and China, they're stealing our information. Security breach. All this stuff. And now you're like, whoa, hold on. Well, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Well, why is that? Well, it's because his campaign team was able to see how powerful a force TikTok is during the presidential election. They used the platform to help Trump gain momentum amongst males in particular on the platform. So now he recognizes this as being a potential extension of his influence and doesn't want to see it go away. Come on, man, make up your mind. Now, I'll be honest with you. I don't care if TikTok goes away. I don't. When everything surrounding TikTok first came about, back then, 2019, 2020, I'm like, oh no, we need TikTok. Well, TikTok today is different than the TikTok from 4 years ago. Oh, really? And I'll explain what I mean. So the TikTok from 4 years ago was a lot more organic and much more intimate from a user experience. Okay, there was no, fudging the numbers when it comes to your followers and finding your tribe and the content. It was purely organic. You couldn't buy followers back then. Yada 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 yada. If people chose to follow you, that's because they rocked with you. Now, TikTok is the new QVC. It is. Wanda's laughing at me. It is. It is no longer a social media platform. It is the new age QVC. I remember living in Detroit. I lived with my grandmother. And Yvonne Davis was going to have that QVC shopping network up and have the middle-aged people up there modeling them Target special clothes, and I could smell the white diamonds through the TV. I could smell the white diamonds perfume on that QVC channel. Tupperware. I mean, they selling all this stuff that don't nobody need on QVC. But you know what? People bought it. They knew who their audience was. And my grandmama was one of them people. Stuff would show up to the house. I'm like, what in the what? You got a steering wheel cover. Grandma, you don't even drive. What is this stuff for? Fast forward, 2024. You attempt to scroll on TikTok, you are going to see much more product-based content than you will see user engaging content. Far more. Far more. Now, the fact that I currently got 6 things in my TikTok cart, that ain't none of your business, okay? I seen a couple of things I want to buy, so I just went ahead and put it in my cart. And you know what I'm talking about, because y'all do the same thing with Amazon. Y'all got Amazon and Shein and Temu carts that's filled with stuff that you haven't pulled the trigger on yet, but you when you know what I'm saying, you wait another payday or two before you go ahead and make that purchase. Right? TikTok is the same way. It is the same way. But here's the other harsh reality that comes along with that. This is the trend that's about to begin happening. We're going to start seeing it more on Instagram. We're going to start seeing it more on YouTube. This is how it's preparing to trend. Why? Because it is a multi-billion-dollar business. Now, here's the other aspect of that. It's not just a multi-billion-dollar business for the companies. For creators, it is a huge financial generator. Huge. So it's bittersweet. For me, it's bitter because I'm like, yo, come on, man. I want to see some TikTok dances. I want to see some trends, this, that, and the third. And I don't necessarily want to be inundated with product every 8 out of 10 swipes. But here's where it gets sweet. I actually am it's called a UGC creator. User generated content is what it's called. UGC creator. I've been a UGC creator for about 1.5 years. So the way that it's worked in the past, you would hear people speak about wanting to be an influencer. I want to be a social media influencer. Well, essentially what that meant is that those individuals wanted to build their social media following to a certain number in an effort to attract different brands to want to come and work with that influencer. And I'm air quoting, right? And so those brands would either provide free product to that influencer for them to create content talking about the product, et cetera, or would pay them to wear, eat, whatever the case may be, and then create content surrounding that particular product or brand. Well, brands began reaching out to me about 1.5 years ago with doing UGC, user-generated content. And they pay me for it. And it's a nice little piece of change. Wow. Right? And so here's the thing. A couple of brands have reached out to me. I've worked with them a couple of times. If anybody's on Instagram, you probably have seen 2 different videos. One video of a black guy with a salt and pepper long beard using a hot brush thing for your beard. That's me. Okay. That's a brand that reached out to me. There's another a fitness app that reacct out to me as well. Now the fitness app people, I'm gonna need them to get their life together. Wanda, you've seen the ads.
They are foul. Because remember, I sent you a message and said, hey, Dwight said he saw you.
Yes.
And I saw it, and you were like, I ain't know nothing about that.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it yet. Mm-hmm. I got so many inbox messages. So here's what happens with a lot of these brands. They'll reach out to you. They say, hey, we want you to, do XYZ number of videos for this particular product. It's called a brief, a project brief. Okay. So it's all right, cool. So yeah, I'll record the videos, et cetera, et cetera. So when you record that content and you turn it over to them, they own that content 100%.
Right.
And can do whatever with it as they choose. Okay. So ladies and gentlemen of the hot listening audience, I am 6 foot, 210 pounds. Okay. In the video that we're referring to, once I did the little exercise videos and everything, it was like for doing chair yoga at home.
Oh, okay.
It's for an app that promotes chair yoga. I send these people the video. They create a whole new video with the AI-generated voiceover. And at the beginning of the video, the narrator talks about, I was 280 pounds. And they show a big fat black guy with glasses walking down the street waving, and then they change up the voiceover. But I started doing this chair yoga from home, and now I've lost weight. And then they show me. Me and old boy, nothing alike. So I've had so many people come up to me in the gym, send me messages online and say, yo, Octavius, why are you selling wolf tickets? I'm like, yo, that's not me. I didn't know that's how they were going to use the video. But the check cleared, so I'm not mad at them either. You know, they got to push their chair yoga,
right?
You know, but that's what happened with user generated content. So it's bittersweet because this is the new trend. But I share that with you because if you spend any time on social media, brands are no longer looking for quote unquote influencers that have thousands and millions of followers. They no longer care about that.
Yeah.
Now what they're looking for are average, everyday people who know how to record a video on their camera.
Yeah.
On their phone, and then send that content to them, and they will pay you for it. And what I just learned this past week, because I've decided to kind of delve into it a lot more. In the past, brands have reached out to me, but now I'm starting to reach out to brands. They are looking for middle-aged individuals, 40 plus.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. Are you picking up what I'm putting down, Wanda P? Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
I am.
So I don't like the new age QVC, but at the same time, if a brother can get a little coin from participating, you know, then who am I?
Yeah.
To pass up on such a blessing.
I mean, it's cool. It's just that this stuff does need a little regulation.
Absolutely.
So that it does not get out of hand.
Yeah.
Like you just pointed out, and the fact that we saw that video with you. It's like, wait a minute. Wait, say what now?
Yeah. It's like, come on. Yeah. Ain't nobody lost no 70 pounds doing no chair yoga. Come on, bro. Come on. Those exercises are not that intense.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, we have a lot more that we're going to discuss on today's show. As I mentioned, also, we have a guest that's going to be joining us in the next hour talking about initiatives that we can implement to help level the playing field within the minority community. That and more is on the way on Front Page Jacksonville.
Now back to the show that informs you and discusses the issues. Front Page Jacksonville on Hot 106.5.
So prior to the break, we were talking about, you know, it's the end of the year and the holidays and, you know, joyous time of year. Yay. Well, this isn't a holiday, so to speak. It's like an unofficial holiday. I'm going to at least consider it to be an unofficial holiday. And that is celebrating the fact that this is the last Sunday that you and I have to endure Jacksonville Jaguar football. Oh. The suffering ends today, regardless of the outcome with the game. It doesn't matter. We're not going to the playoffs. Neither is the opponent we're playing against. They don't have any playoff hopes either. You got bad versus bad today. Horrible versus worse. That's who's playing today. I probably won't even watch the game. What's the point?
That's why tickets were left.
That's why tickets were left. That's why tickets are cheap. Right? So it's almost coming to an end, ladies and gentlemen. Now, this upcoming Monday, I think it's this upcoming Monday, that's referred to as Black Monday in the National Football League. I think it's this upcoming Monday, where it's the end of the regular season and coaches that are on the hot seat, general managers that are on the hot seat, get their walking papers. So I will probably be amongst those Jaguar fans who's scouring Twitter and every other ESPN, every other news feed to see what's going to happen within the Jacksonville Jaguar organization. And it sounds a little sadistic because it's like we root for someone to lose their job. But it's not like it's the person. It's more so the position, if that makes it any better. I don't think it does. Because it's still a family. You know, it's still a breadwinner who would be losing their job. So it sucks from that standpoint. I get it. But it also sucks for us as fans. How long has Shad Khan owned this team? 12 years now? Yeah, I think he bought the franchise in 2011 and officially took over in 2012, if I remember correctly. This has been very painful to endure. I don't know if changes will be made with Trent Baalke, the current general manager, Doug Peterson, the current head coach. I don't know, but I know changes need to happen because something is going on within the four walls of that organization, and it's not translating very well on the football field. But today ends all that suffering once that game concludes. Howsoever, as my sister from another mister sitting across from me currently says, howsoever, there is a bright spot within the Jaguars organization. One of the organization's favorite sons, Fred Taylor, has been announced as a finalist for the Hall of Fame. Freddie T, I'm pulling for you, big dog. Fred was drafted in 1998 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, played through 2008. During his time with the Jaguars, he rushed for 11,271 yards, had a total of 62 touchdowns. He is the franchise's all-time rushing leader. I truly, truly hope he wins, not win, but is inducted into the Hall of Fame. I think 2 years ago, Tony Baselli, the very first draft pick of the Jacksonville Jaguars in 1995, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame just 2 years ago after several failed attempts. I honestly believe one of the reasons why Tony Baselli had such a challenging time with being inducted into the Hall of Fame sooner, and why I suspect, although Fred is a Hall of Fame finalist, why I suspect he's going to have a challenging time being inducted into the Hall of Fame is because of the team that they were associated with, the Jacksonville Jaguars. I truly do. Prior to the break, I was speaking about Trump and, him attempting to influence decisions prior to him getting in office. There are a few games that I know happens, right? And when I speak about games, I'm not talking about games that you play in a literal sense, but figuratively. Politics is a game that is played. But politics also has a hand in professional sports. Oh, trust and believe it does. You better believe it does. And so my apprehension with the joyous announcement of Freddie T being announced as a finalist is I think that the game of the NFL, the game that's behind the scenes, despite how great his stats were as a player, I don't think it's going to be strong enough to overcome the political game that's associated with professional sports because of the organization that he's attached to, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I get it. It is what it is. It is what it is. But Freddie T, man, congratulations nonetheless. Now, I don't know if you have ever met him in person. They have him listed as 6'1". That cannot be accurate. He is huge. I had an opportunity to speak with him very briefly. This was it 2001? After the unfortunate events of 9/11. I came across him in what used to be Regency Square Mall. Oh, how far Regency Square Mall has fallen. But I had a quick banter with him during that time, just, asking him his thoughts about the tragedy that took place. And as I stated earlier in the show, I'm 6 feet tall. This brother was not 6'1". He had to be a good 6'4". Had to be a good 6'4", 6'3". Fred Taylor.
Bruh, he's not that tall.
He towered over me.
I've seen him in person, too. He's not that tall.
Well, he must have had some lifts in his shoes because he was taller. He towered over me. I was like, this dude is pretty big.
I could be wrong, but I remember seeing him. We were on a family trip, and we were going, I want to say, towards Pensacola.
Yep.
And stopped somewhere. And it's part of a story that I told you years ago. I think it was that same trip that we saw Fred Taylor. But he's not that tall. And again, I could be wrong.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, Mike going off.
No. You're fine. He seemed, I'll put it that way, he seemed to tower over me. I was like, this dude is pretty big, But shout out to Freddie T. He's also the co-host of the Pivot podcast. What's your take, Wanda? We were speaking about just the shift that's happening in social media becoming the new QVC, but there's another shift where current athletes, former athletes are now hosting their own podcasts. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever seen any clips or have watched the Pivot podcast.
Just heard about
You've just heard about it? Mm-hmm. They put out some pretty good stuff.
Do they? Yeah, I should check it out.
Yeah, because what I like about it, so you have three guys. Fred Taylor, he's one of the hosts.
He's 6'1", by the way.
Yeah. I mentioned that. That's what I said.
Okay.
They say he's listed as 6'1", but he seems taller than that.
Yeah.
But he's one of the hosts of the podcast. Channing Crowder, another former NFL player, and Ryan Clark, another former NFL player. Okay. All three brothers, what I love about it is they don't just talk sports.
Okay.
They talk about life.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And they're having some pretty deep and intimate conversations with other well-known athletes, entertainers, etc. And it's like, it's not surface stuff.
Right.
I remember not a few years ago, but maybe a year or two ago, I believe Michael Beasley is this NBA player's name. He's no longer in the league right now. But they were just having a great conversation with him, and Beasley was just really vulnerable during that podcast interview and just sharing his challenges with depression and just a few other things, as a professional athlete that people typically don't know about. But of course, these three guys, these three hosts, they understand it. They've walked that road. They know many of the challenges that come along with it. So it really feels more of like a brotherhood when they're conversing. And I'll even go a step further, especially for the fellas that are listening right now. It reminds me of talks that we have at the barbershop.
And that could be like the vibe they could have been going for. You never know. But I've heard about the podcast. I know there are like dozens of podcasts out there. I just don't be listening to them. But who has the time? That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. And I'm glad that they're able, podcasting is so accessible that they're able to create their own narratives and stories and talk about stuff that's important to them. Because I know the National Football League, and just the way they do some of the athletes, the black athletes, I'm just going to say that. It's just so not cool, it's so not cool. So for these fellas to be able to come together and then to tell their stories, I'm assuming freely.
Yes.
That's a good thing. Now, is the podcast monetized? I'm sure it is.
Yeah, it is at this point.
Because it's very popular.
It's very popular. So, yeah, they are monetizing it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Kudos.
He says, as long as your brother's getting their coins.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they're getting something out of it. Not just the coin, but also to be able to. It also, as you alluded to, can serve as a mini little therapy session because they're able to just vent and talk to each other. So I'm here for it, and I'm happy about that, and I'll check it out.
Yeah, they've had Kevin Hart on at one point.
I think I saw pictures or clips of that.
You've seen clips of that one. Just really, really good discussions. And what I like about what I'm seeing across the spectrum with different athletes, specifically the men that are hosting these podcasts, to me, they are dispelling the dumb jock narrative.
And that as well. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to what I was saying about telling their own story. Yeah.
Because even if we think about, this was back when the unfortunate murder of George Floyd took place.
Okay.
And members of the NBA began speaking out against it, LeBron James in particular. And if you recall, there was a commentator that said, "Shut up and dribble."
Right.
Right. I don't remember her name, right? But she was like, shut up and dribble. Well, even LeBron does a show on HBO called The Shop.
Yeah.
And it's himself, Maverick, I can't think of Maverick's last name, but, and they kind of do a similar thing. So really because LeBron's show has been going on a couple of seasons now before the pivot and many of these other podcasts that athletes are putting out there now. Yeah. But I enjoy seeing all these different perspectives, hearing stories that we would have never heard, but because these athletes are the ones experiencing it, we're going to hear it from their standpoint. Cam Newton.
Yeah.
He's another one that has a podcast out there. But something that I like that he also does, aside from the podcast, is he will oftentimes give commentary on a lot of the football games. And he's explaining and breaking down what's going on. And I never played football in high school or anything of the sort. So it's almost like he's talking a different language. Just because, and it amazes me. I'm like, these athletes have to be very intelligent, highly intelligent, to be able to disseminate all these things that are happening within a matter of 40 seconds. You know what I mean? And that doesn't even include, when they get to the line of scrimmage and, the quarterback calls the play and then they have to assess everything that's happening in a matter of seconds. It's phenomenal to hear them speak about it from their perspective. But since we're here, I'd be remiss. I know we have a quick break that we have to get to, but I would be remiss if I didn't use this little caveat to acknowledge a journalist and broadcaster that we recently lost.
2 days ago.
2 days ago, Greg Gumbel. Man, I loved his delivery style. Reminds me a lot of his brother, Brian. They sound very similar in their texture and their delivery style. But Greg Gumbel passed away 2 days ago. I haven't read an article or anything to learn about the cause. Has there been any information shared on the cause to your knowledge?
I don't know. And it seems like to me that was it cancer? I believe it was.
Okay. But we can check that because we're getting ready to go to a break. So, let's do that. We'll step away for a break. During the break, we'll find out the cause of Greg Gumbel's passing and give you that update. So that and much more is on the way here on Front Page Jacksonville.
Front Page Jacksonville resumes on High 106.5.
Did you see where JSO recently released the numbers for 2024? And when I'm speaking about the numbers, I'm speaking specifically about the murder rate numbers in 2024. And just looking at data, cold hard facts, it's kind of impressive. So let me rewind the clock to 2022. The number of murders that took place in Jacksonville was 134. Number of murders committed. Number of murders cleared was 87. right, that carried a 64% clearance rate. Additionally, in 2022, there were 4 manslaughters. They solved all 4 of those. They cleared 4 of those. Justifiable homicides. In 2022, there were 22 justifiable homicides. And they cleared all 22 of those. Now, I was curious. I was like, well, what is a justifiable homicide? Huh? And then the second question I had was, were all those JSO shootings? That was my next. That was the next question that came across my mind. So I'll explain what a justifiable homicide is. According to JSO, when a homicide lacks criminal intent, i.e., the killing of someone in defense of one's life or in defense of another's life, it's deemed justifiable. So that's what's deemed as a justifiable homicide. I'll read that again. When a homicide lacks criminal intent, the killing of someone in defense of one's life or in defense of someone else's life, it's deemed a justifiable homicide. I thought it was all murder in my head. I didn't know that it was sparsed apart. So those were the numbers for 2022. Now, let's take a look at 2023. The number of murders in Jacksonville in 2023, 122. 73 of those murders were cleared or solved. Manslaughter, on par with the previous year. There were 4 manslaughters in 2023. All 4 of those were cleared. Justifiable homicides in 2023, there was 21 of them. All 21 were cleared. That was 1 less justifiable homicide than its previous year. Now, 2024, 58 murders. 58 compared to 122 murders last year and 134 murders the year before that. There has only been 58 murders in Jacksonville. And let me clear something up. I said there's only been. That's not me attempting to diminish the importance and the value of each of those 58 people who lost their lives, those 58 families whose lives were changed, not attempting to diminish by any stretch of the imagination. So for any family members who may be listening, please know and understand, I empathize with you and please hear my heart of compassion, just showing the numbers from year to year. So in 2024, only 34 of those 58 murders have been cleared. Manslaughters, 1 less than last year, 3. 3 manslaughters in Jacksonville in 2024. 2 of those have been solved. Justifiable homicides in 2024 in Jacksonville, 7. And all 7 of those have been cleared. So, bravo to JSO. You know, not only from the standpoint of those numbers being cut in more than half. That's more than half. 122 last year, 134 the year before that, 58. Yeah. That's I can't believe this is about to come out of Davius's mouth. That's good police work. That sounds like good police work to me. Wanda P., would you agree?
Yeah, I guess I'm reluctantly saying so, but yeah. Shouts out, kudos, all that. And like you said, not to diminish the fact that 58 people have died, but you know, if we could get less and less people dying because of this violence, then that's a win for our community.
I wholeheartedly agree. And I will admit to sharing your apprehension. Because I don't know if you've ever seen the show The Wire. If you've never seen the show The Wire, I think it's season 4.
It's still
possibly season 3. No. The Wire has concluded.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. It's concluded, but it's a great rewatch.
Yes.
It's a great show to binge over and over again.
I hear. Yeah.
During one of those seasons, they delve into the police department there in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they show how the police department finagles the numbers year over year.
Yeah.
Based on political pressure from the mayor's office.
Of course.
And so they show you how they would hold back certain murder rate numbers so that it not fall under a particular chief's watch.
Yeah.
And then wait until the next year when there's a new chief and there's a new mayor. That way it falls on, it falls under them as being the responsibility. Now, I'm not saying
this is going on.
Huh?
Well, a couple of things.
Well, hold on. But before you say that, you listen to Hot 106.5 FM, Duval's only R&B, WHJX, Ponte Vedra Beach. Wanda P, you were saying. Got to do the top of that.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that. What we call the legal ID. But first of all, I guess it's different because we have a new mayor.
Yes.
So there wouldn't be pressure from her about this. And then our sheriff is fairly new as well. He's 2 years into office.
I think 2 years in.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I guess these kinds of things may not apply.
Or does it?
Or does it? You notice I reluctantly said may not. I'm asking a question, but yeah.
But see, so I reached out
but that dynamic doesn't apply.
I would like to believe that it doesn't apply. Yeah. Again, I'm talking about made-for-TV drama. Wink, wink. So I'm not saying our city is finagling numbers. No, I wouldn't dare. But I am going to once again reach out to Sheriff T.K. Waters' office in an effort to get him on the show because, I mean, all jokes aside.
We're probably not the only ones that are like...
Right. It's like, that is an extreme drop.
Right. So what is really going on? Sorry. No shade. Not trying to be disparaging, but the question is the question.
Yeah, but I often say questions are the answers to our problems. And so I believe that if these are questions that are coming to our minds, then these are questions that are coming to the minds of the citizens here in the community.
Everybody else is thinking it too.
Yeah, and so I think it's a fair question to be able to ask Sheriff Waters once we get him in on the show. Because now this is where my mind just went in this discussion. I'm curious, and it would take some time to do the research. What were the murder numbers under Sheriff Glover? I'm curious.
Oh.
I'm curious. And then I'm curious of what those numbers were under Rutherford and under Williams and do a comparison of those 4 different sheriffs to see if there are any trends or anything of the sort. Because if we just go based on this, 2022, Sheriff Mike Williams was still in play. Right, because he's who Waters preceded, and so that was 134 murders in 2022. Under Sheriff Williams. 2023. Let's say, was this Sheriff Waters' first year in 2023?
Yes,
right. So
it was.
That would be his first year, and it dropped by what 12? To 122, and then 2024 it drops down to 58. So that's going to be a great show to have a conversation with him about. It is,
and I don't recall in recent years the numbers being that low.
Yeah, agreed.
Period.
Agreed.
So
agreed. Now again, unless somebody's, playing the shell game with some of these numbers. But I would love to hear from Sheriff Waters in terms of what was the state of JSO when he took office.
Right.
And what are some of the things that have aided in dropping these numbers? Now,
and I will say this, leadership does matter.
Absolutely.
It does. But the one thing that he has attempted to do, and he does, he speaks often about transparency. So I can give him points for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can give him points for that. The other thing that he does is these community walks.
Yep.
In various communities, and try to talk to the people and stuff like that.
Yeah.
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 So those are some things that I just have not seen in recent years.
Sure.
And so those could be things that are contributing. I'm just suggesting that. I ain't for sure. I got questions just like everybody else. A little hesitant and a little skeptical like everybody else. So,
yeah, absolutely. But I think rightfully so. People teach you how to treat them. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there is a history of individuals in positions of power who have abused that power in some shape, form, or fashion. Yeah. And we, the people, are the ones who have to deal with the collateral damage. Right? I did see when the news released earlier this week about the murder rate numbers, I briefly saw an article where Sheriff Waters does give some credit to the gang units. He believed that the gang units are helping with those numbers dropping.
Okay.
But I am going to advocate to get him in on this show, hopefully live, because when I called the PIO, Public Information Officer, he told me, he said, "Oh, look, Mr. Davis, that's a Sunday."
Right.
Sheriff and church on Sundays. So it might be pre-recorded. I don't know, but I would love to get him in here because
either way.
Here's the other thing too, and we have a guest that I'll be getting to in just a moment who he may also have some thoughts on what we're discussing. So I'm gonna swing to him in just a moment. But you mentioned about Sheriff Waters' platform essentially being one of transparency. I don't think you were in on the Sunday where I circled the wagon on the Florida-Georgia game after the sheriff's office had did their press conference, and the degree of transparency that he and his office went into breaking down each of the videos. I said right here on the show, because the week prior, I was pretty critical of what the videos showed, but then I said on that following Sunday, after having an opportunity, and I said right here on the show, I'm like, hey, listen, I ain't got no gripes with how they broke that thing down. It makes sense.
Me either. And those men, they deserve what they get.
Well, look.
That's a whole nother subject matter.
I was talking to a buddy of mine that I work out with. He's actually an FBI agent. We were at the gym and everything, and I brought that up. Yeah. And he said, man, look, I'm be honest. Had they did X, Y, Z to me, I would have beat too. And, I'm like, hey, I get it. And so, but what that press conference did for me, and I shared this on the show during that same discussion, I shared that what it also reveals to me is just the lack of understanding that the community has as it relates to interacting with law enforcement. Right. Because one of the things that immediately caught my attention, the officer was breaking down the video of the gentleman who was in the inappropriate seat, in the wrong seat.
Oh, okay.
And the officers,
first video.
Yeah, the first video. And so as the officer is essentially doing the play-by-play, he says, at this point, the gentleman assaulted the officer.
Right.
But what the gentleman did, it was the way that he approached the officer. Right. And the officer said, this is where he assaulted him. I'm like, whoa, that's assault? Yeah. I thought assault was when you physically touch or ta-da-da-da. And there's like, no, this is assault. Yeah. And I was like, whoa. So I understand what's going on. I can't say in totality. I believe one of the issues that exists, which boils down to communication between police officers across the board and the public is a lack of understanding of how they define a lot of these words.
Absolutely, because our perceptions are different.
Yes.
Case in point, the case from last week where the gentleman got shot with his own gun by a JSO officer. Then they put out the statement, then they put out a statement or a mandate to officers going forward. This is how you should handle that. Yeah. Shouldn't you have been handling it that way all along? Right. The man, and they admitted the man was cooperative. Yeah. He told them he had a gun. He had the right to the gun. Why did he end up shot? Right. Come on now.
It's like moving the goalpost.
And I know this, right. and I know this, and we're delving into bias,
Sure.
Because to me, that's what it was.
Sure.
Because had he had a different complexion, he wouldn't have got shot.
Right.
In my just my opinion, and I know a lot of people share it.
Well, and on that end, let me go ahead and bring our guest in to join us on the conversation as well. Joining us on Hot 106.5 Front Page Jacksonville today is Stephen Johnson. He's with Florida Rising. Stephen, you've been so calm and listening in as Wanda and I have been going back and forth for the past 10 minutes about the numbers with JSO in terms of the murder rate, but then transitioning into transparency and things of that nature. So we're going to come back and dive deep into Florida Rising and what it's all about. But I'd like to get your take so far based on what we've been discussing.
I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, man, I got so much to say. Because I would definitely be in agreement. I think some things have, gotten better. For instance, the community walks that has been more visible. But you brought a good point, communication. A lot of times that fear when you see a JSO cop car, when you see a JSO walk and he tense up. You think, I gotta run, and then you put yourself in harm's way without first you communicate. Okay, how should, if a police officer comes to me or I see them, how should I approach myself? How should I conduct myself? Those numbers, I like to see the transitioning.
So you got some questions too.
Yes, I do. One thing that comes to mind too is population. At those numbers, how many people lived here in Jacksonville? How many people are moving out of Jacksonville? I know we're going to talk about it later as far as housing and things, but as rent's going up, there are people moving in and there are people moving out, and the people are moving in. What is their intellect? The people who can't afford a $2,000, $3,000, or $4,000 not mortgage, but rent. When you think about that, they may be of a different type of intellect to where they have a good job or whatever the case may be, But I also think about population when I think about that. Who's moved into Jacksonville and who's moved out of Jacksonville.
Indeed.
So those are things that I'm like, I would love to have him on your show to see his response on where what are things that you're doing. I know for myself, I have seen more police presence, especially when it comes to large events. With festivals and stuff. I'm like, I've never seen as many people at what's the festival, the one that they have, World of Nations and all that. So I do see, I do see more of a police presence just in patrolling, not necessarily doing things, but in patrolling or being more visible. I do see that.
And you're hearing Stephen Johnson with Florida Rising, and we're going to talk briefly in a moment about what Florida Rising is all about. But Stephen, you just kind of brought up some points that neither Wanda nor I even considered when you speak about the population and the impact that could have on these murder rate numbers that we're seeing. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Stephen. What's your background?
So for me, my background came from corporate America.
Okay, yes, sir.
So I had my share working in management and leadership, but also community had a special place in my heart. Like I wasn't just being at the cubicle or being at the desk. I always had a heart to reach out to the community. I always had a heart, especially in the financial industry, to make sure that I give financial literacy to especially my community, the Black and brown community who is struggling at times, who are struggling to make ends meet, but also have goals, home ownership and things of that nature. And also address that, hey, we were treated unfairly. Hey, we did have high interest rates and things compared to whites and things of that nature. So, that always had a special passion of mine. So I did that, and then Lord blessed with the opportunity to do it full time with Florida Rising. So I did it full time, and so now I'm actively in the community, being a community organizer and mobilizing the community on lines of how you can have a better quality of life. But it's through legislation at times. It's through making sure you vote. It's through making sure you know who's running for Senate seats, House seats, or even local local seats, whether it's your mayor, whether it's your council folks, commissioners, things of that nature. And I have been enjoying the ride and learning more about Jacksonville and a deeper understanding about the communities. I said this is the first year I actually canvassed out east, and that was really cool seeing and understanding that community and understanding the love that is there too.
833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to join the conversation here on Front Page Jacksonville. Well, Stephen, I'm just going to put this disclaimer out. I don't know how this show is going to end. Here's why I say that. When you start talking about voting, when you start talking about rallying and getting behind the people.
Yes.
And we got Farrah Keisha over here. Right?
Whatever.
And myself, because a few weeks back, she and I had a heated sibling discussion surrounding voting. And so I'm glad that you are here, because I like to dive into that from a few different fronts. But Florida Rising, we build independent political power that centers historically marginalized communities so everyday Floridians shape the future. So you spoke about voting. Let's start there with voting. How does Florida Rising help marginalized communities understand the importance of voting, especially when within some marginalized communities, we feel like voting is a farce, right? It's like, we're not really deciding the outcome of this. They already know who they want in position. So how do you change that paradigm?
And I have to admit, when we have lobby days, so usually beginning when legislation is open, and you'll see all types of organizations march down there on Capitol Hill, Tallahassee, and they voice their concerns, their voice on bills that affect their community, that affect their organization. And it is, up for an honest, it is hurtful, because 9 times out of 10, the decision has already been made, and the decision has been made because nobody has necessarily talked with them before they got to Tallahassee. Nobody has not knocked on doors. Nobody has not emailed them. Nobody has not called them. Nobody has not lobbied and said, hey, you're about to make a bad decision that's affecting your territory, your constituents. Here with Florida Rising, we use all forms. Communication is so important. When we canvass for the presidential election, and also the primary election where you had to vote for your House and Senate, a lot of people still did not know what does a person in a House, the House, what do they do? A person in Senate, what do they do? And so we can't say vote for somebody if you don't even know what their role is. Even when it comes to a mayor, what a mayor can and can't do. So for us, we use all forms of media, and where I come in is old school, knocking on doors, old school. Let's have meetings. We call them people's assemblies, or some people may call them community meetings, where we may meet up at a church, we may meet up at a community center and say, hey, we're having an open forum to let you know what's going on in your community, what's going on in Duval, what's going on in Florida. And also, we call it civic training, where we don't say, hey, vote for this candidate. Let me tell you a little bit about legislation. Let me tell you what the people in Capitol do in Tallahassee. But education is so important. And then I always tell folks, follow us. Follow us on those social media platforms. We're on Facebook, and we're also on Instagram too as well, floridarising.org.
You bring up a great point about just the lack of knowledge. My people are destroyed, not for a lack of drip, not for a lack of skills, right? Not for a lack of bling, but for a lack of knowledge. A few weeks ago, I was speaking about, I'm going to go hyper local for a moment, was speaking about how the city recently approved for a morgue to be built on the east side, right in, by a school at that. And Wanda and I were talking like, how did this happen? And I believe that's in Jacoby Pittman's district, Councilwoman Jacoby Pittman's district. And I'm like, how did this get passed through? Was it one of those things where it was buried in legislation, kind of like what we saw about a week and a half ago with that 1,500-page spending bill that, they were trying to pass that was going to lead to the government shutdown. Is that did they try to pass it through like that? Is it simply because the people, we weren't at city council when this thing was being voted on? So from a local standpoint, when we see things like that taking place, that the community has been very vocal about being against, how are things like that still thrust upon them, so to speak?
I think it's one of, I tell the community, I tell people, you got to be observant. You got to be observant of those bright yellow signs, those bright blue signs that say, hey, zoning is this, or community hearing is that. Unfortunately, though, when it comes to these meetings, we work. You know, not everybody, like when I was working in corporate America, I couldn't leave at 2:00 and then not only that, drive down to find parking. Because like there was a housing meeting and I said, are y'all validating parking? No. So I got to pay for my own parking, got to get downtown. And then, like you said, if you're working and things of that nature, for sometimes the meeting is, you do your, regular talk, but then by the time you get to the meat and potatoes, it's time to go. So, one thing I have to tell folks is when you see those signs of, hey, there's a public hearing going on, when you see stuff plastered on buildings, especially abandoned buildings, that, hey, we're getting ready to make this an area. Also, too, if you start seeing construction, if you feel comfortable, hey, back in the day, I remember I used to canvass, and we used to literally in New Mexico, we would just we were trying to get people to come into the union for contractors. We would go. We didn't know who they were, who we were. we got a hard hat and we just drove around. And we just drove around, and if we saw somebody on construction, we just parked and just said, hey, keep the truck running in case the person comes out, and we'll go and we'll just talk to them and say, hey, what are you doing in this area? Are you familiar with this? Do you know that? So sometimes we have to be visible. One thing I did like was and I saw how impactful it was when it came to the liquor store. The community was very impactful. But I like, because not only did they were visible, by sharing their concerns, whether it's by talking to media and things of that nature, but they got their council people involved. As to the point where every Tuesday, like, okay, look, I'm tired. How many people are here for the liquor store? Everybody was 30, 40, 50 people raised their hand. Okay, you know what? Because of all these folks, let's take this somewhere else and talk about it. There's power in numbers. And that's one of the things we talk about Florida Rising, is that there is power in numbers. Also, too, as well, I tell folks, we got to communicate. We got to figure out, when it comes to these people in office, what is that connection point? There's a reason. There's a reason why you put this morgue on the north side. Why? What do you see that we don't see? And then let's talk about it and figure out, okay, out of that connection point, whether it's, hey, the value of the land is cheap. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Why is the value of the land cheap? Let's see what we can, change around and have or maybe it's a space. There's just no more space as far as a certain mile radius. I don't know. Sure. I don't know. Yeah. But, those are things that we have to talk, and sometimes we got to be uncomfortable. It's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable. In order for change to happen, we have to be uncomfortable.
You're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. My guest in the studio with me right now is Stephen Johnson with Florida Rising, talking about how we can make change in our community, both locally, regionally, and across the nation. He mentioned that when he was in Arizona, they rode up to a construction site.
Yes.
All up in them people business.
Yes.
And what immediately came to mind, I said, well, if it worked for Turbo and them and Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo when they was trying to save miracles, when they rode up on the construction site, then surely that can work for us too. So we're going to continue talking with Stephen Johnson when we come back. Something that I want to touch on as well when we return from the break is the homelessness rate in Jacksonville has increased to 40%. So we're going to delve into that and a lot more here on Front Page Jacksonville.
Front Page Jacksonville resumes on Hot 106.5.
Hey, if you're just tuning in, I already let you know at the beginning of the show that Christmas was this past week. There was no crema at my house. If it was crema at your house, then I'm happy for you and yours. But right now, the gifts that are being dropped in the studio is the gift of knowledge. And we have Stephen Johnson from Florida Rising here in the studio with us. And Stephen, a moment ago, you were just speaking about galvanizing the community, that there's power in numbers. And one of the things that Florida Rising does is help communities understand how to activate that power in numbers. So with that being the case, I think it's a great opportunity to speak about an unfortunate situation that recently hit the news just a few days ago, but actually took place December 10th in Utica, New York. And that was the killing of Robert Brooks. I want to call it murder. I really do. I want to call it the murder of Robert Brooks by several correctional officers at the Marcy Correctional Facility in upstate New York. If you aren't familiar with the video, allow me to warn you right now, it is a very graphic video. This gentleman is handcuffed, hands behind his back, handcuffed in an examination room on like a hospital bed is what it looks like. And he's surrounded by several correctional officers who are pulmoning him, beating him to a pulp, essentially. And he dies during this situation. Something about me, many listeners may not know because I don't talk publicly about this. This is something that my wife and I have conversations in private about, but I'll share it because I think it's apropos because of the topic that we're transitioning into. There are certain movies that I will not watch. Queen and Slim, that's an example of a movie that I will not watch. There are several other movies that are out there as well. I just can't think of the titles at the moment. And here's why I refuse to watch those type films. I hate, and I do not use that word often in my vocabulary, so therefore I do not use this word lightly. I hate seeing any images of African American men, women, and children being murdered by people who hide behind a badge. I hate it. I hate it with such passion that I cannot look at it. I cannot watch it. Even the situation with the story that I just referenced with Robert Brooks. I have not watched the video. When videos hit social media of these occurrences, I cannot watch the video because it infuriates me to levels that are sometimes uncontainable. Stephen, how can we as a community, as a people, navigate the political system to get laws in place to protect us from the people who are supposed to be protecting us? How? How do we navigate that terrain?
That is a question we get all the time from the community because we see the oppression, we see the hurt, we see the pain, and we see that we try so hard. We try so hard, and sometimes we, as they say, you make one step or two steps forward and be knocked 5 steps back. And we see it a lot too when it comes to the changing of hands and legislation. We can have some person in legislation, we work so hard, and when their term is done, because the people didn't vote to keep them in office or their term has ended because, it's,
term limits or whatever the case.
Exactly. We have to start all over again. And we get tired. And one thing I have to say is that we have to continue to press forward and look at the bigger picture. Not just for us, but for the next generations, for our grandkids, for our nieces, our nephews, or just for the community, the people who are under us. Relationship building. We see it all the time when it comes to, again, to go back to corporate America is all about relationship building. That's how you move up the ladder. That's how you get the money that you want and the title and all this stuff, the authority. But sometimes we don't relate that to community work. We feel that we have to be divided when it comes to community work. We feel that, I have to do it by myself. No, communicate, get your neighbors, start in your inner circle. You know, the favorite restaurant and that server that you always go to, talk to them and say, hey, on your day off, we're doing this. Are you available? You know, if you have that relationship. But going back to your question, that same approach goes to the people who are in office, the people who are your state representatives, the people who are your mayor on your mayor's board, Donna Deegan, all them folks. It starts there. It starts with, hey, can I have a meeting with you? On Tuesday when they have their the council. Yeah, that's the perfect opportunity because everybody is going to be there. Hey, you may have to wait. There's a sacrifice.
Sure.
There's a sacrifice. There's going to be, in order for you to move in that direction, you're going to have to sacrifice your time. You're going to have to sacrifice certain things. But maybe wait before you leave. Congress, councilman, let me talk to you for a minute. Or get their aid. A lot of people don't realize their aid is their gatekeeper. Talk to your aid. If you can get them good with that aid, you'll be surprised how they will move certain stuff to make sure that you are at the table. To make sure, and then bring some. Again, we said it earlier. Numbers. Don't do this alone. You don't have to do it alone. Bring somebody with you who stands with you, who stands and maybe can have a testimony like, hey, I know where you've been because I'm dealing with the same thing. A lot of times what I've seen when we have done things in Tallahassee is when we always tell folks, hey, we always tell our members, speak, and tell them your story. Because when you tell them your story, that is what connects with them. We hear all the time testimony at church. What moves folks? It's testimony service. So,
exactly.
you know, so I would say start there, but also too, you got to be on them. You got to be consistent. You can't say, okay, hey, I need you to vote this way, or can you come to law, and then you leave. You got to be on them. You have to continue to follow up. You have to also, too, you got to know, hey, so-and-so, council representative, I see that this bill that talks about police accountability is going to be up on Tuesday at City Council. There are people who travel all the time just to make sure that their face is seen when it comes to voting. And if they didn't vote the way that they needed for the community's help, they'll sit there and talk to them. Why did you say yes? Why did you say no? And go from there.
You mentioned sacrifice, right? Individuals have to be willing to make a sacrifice of their time to be present and diligent with attempting to build these relationships to get the desired outcome that they're speaking about. In today's political climate, backlash is a huge thing. Yes. Social media, whatever the case may be. So for someone who may hear you right now, so, okay, Stephen, I hear you. All right. I need to sacrifice my time. I need to be down there. I need to build relationships, etc. What potential backlash could the community experience as they're attempting to navigate these waters to advocate for change in their community, change in legislation, etc.?
Backlash, one word that comes to mind is uncomfortability. You know, you're going to be uncomfortable. Prime example, just locally, we advocated for a housing. There was an apartment complex that just did not, bad reviews and things of that nature. And so we went in there. Again, we didn't tell them what to do. We said, hey, we see that y'all need help. What is it that you need help with? What needs to be changed? I got a stove that's not working. The AC is not working, things of that nature. And what we realized was we gave them the tools, we gave them the resources. We also gave them we worked together. Also pointed them in who was their council person at that time. And the backlash was there were some people whose rent went up. Wow. There was some people
Are you serious?
that said, hey, we're not renewing your lease. And now we did tell them, hey. You
warned them on the front end. Yes, potential backlash.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
But that's why, when you're stepping into these realms, we don't know what tomorrow may hold.
Sure.
We don't know what can happen, but you want to make sure that you're prepared as best as you can.
Yeah.
So when you step into those realms, you know, that's why, again, financial literacy comes into place. When you step in those realms, you know that, hey, okay, I'm about to say something, and I know my lease ends in 2 months. I already have my mindset that if something happens, I already have another place to go, or things of that nature. Also, too, as well, you know, I'm a man of faith, so I'm the type of person, too, as well. If you're doing what God's will is, He's going to protect you. You know, He's going to guide you through it. Now, it's not going to be easy.
Sure.
Ooh.
Sure.
It's not going to be easy.
I'm about to say, well, Stephen, there was this dude named Jesus.
Okay, that's that right.
My boy caught one.
Okay. But, you know, those are things you will. You know, you in all types of ways. Whether it could be, you know, attacked on your character. Yeah. But one thing, if people know you and know your work, they can say whatever they want. That's not going to change what needs to be done. Yeah.
And it falls up under that one word that you said, sacrifice. You know, but I like the fact that Florida Rising at least equips individuals with that knowledge, information, and understanding on the front end, because it's, you know, this is the cost. Yes. Are you prepared to pay it? Yes. Right. There cannot be peace without violence. Right. There cannot be change without some sort of transformation, and transformations are not pleasant. You mentioned about being willing to be uncomfortable. There has to be discomfort in order for something to change. And so I do believe that those different factors may have contributed to us in the community not stepping up to the plate when opportunities have presented itself. But what it also makes me think about is the civil rights movement, and how many celebrities stepped up financially to support, you know, the different leaders and different people who were part of the movement because of the financial backlash, because of losing their jobs, et cetera. And this isn't a question geared toward you, Stephen. This is more so geared toward us as a community. In today's day and time, where would that financial backing come from if we, the people, chose to galvanize and rally against, you know, police brutality, to rally against all these different ailments that we see within our community? Who could we look to say, hey, will you catch us if we experience XYZ type of backlash? And again, that's not geared towards you specifically, Stephen, but that is one of the things to consider.
You know, sometimes we got to go back to old school community where, hey, do you have some sugar? Do you got some eggs?
Yeah.
You know, those days. Yeah. But those were simpler times. You know, there were simpler times where the demand wasn't so great as it is now, and the technology and things of that nature. You know, there was a time too where you were able to go to the church to get that financial blessing, but you know, church is changing too as well, and the giving and offering and people not church like they used to, don't do the COVID and things of that nature. So there, sometimes we have to go back to those type of really community, like I said, a village raise a child type of thing. And the question is to ourselves, are we going to do that? You know, do we want to make that sacrifice type of thing?
Do we want change or do we want convenience?
There you go.
Because we can't have both.
And sometimes I'm a sucker for convenience. I'm just going to like,
oh, no, hey, absolutely.
I will pay extra for convenience sometimes.
833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump in on the conversation here on Front Page Jacksonville. We're about to take a quick break, but Stephen, when we come back, let's talk about housing here in Jacksonville. Stick around, more is on the way.
The heartbeat of the community. Front Page Jacksonville returns on Hot 106.5.
Shout out to the Clara White Mission, who's having their Red Ribbon and Bow Tie Day Gala today at 2 p.m. at the historic, is it Scottish Rite? Is that how you say that? Right. At the Scottish Rite here in Jacksonville. And of course, if you're not familiar with the Clara White Mission, let me update you on what their mission is: to prevent and reduce homelessness through advocacy, housing, job training, and employment by working in partnership with businesses in the community. And that's so apropos because the Clara White Mission has been doing their thing here in Jacksonville for a very long time. Shout out to Councilwoman Jacoby Pittman. She was holding down the Clara White Mission before she had Councilwoman in front of her name, okay? She been out here in these streets, literally out here in these streets, helping the community in an effort to thwart the rising homelessness that we've been seeing, and not simply serving meals and offer a bed and a pillow. No. Listen to the mission statement. Reduce homelessness through advocacy, housing, job training, and employment. See, you can put a Band-Aid on a wound, but that don't mean that wound is going to heal. Clara White Mission right here, they giving some Father John. They put a little iodine on that thing, so a little Neosporin, and they're going to put the Band-Aid on that for you. Why? Because there is a growing issue in Jacksonville of homelessness. I'll shift gears for a moment. Recently, Councilman Matt Carlucci shared that homelessness in Jacksonville has increased by 40%. 40%. Every other Saturday, I drive through downtown Jacksonville en route to my barbershop. And like clockwork, Saturday mornings, I see it. Despite the no camping, no sleeping bill that was passed on October 1st, you still see through downtown Jacksonville homelessness through pretty much every street corner as you drive through downtown Jacksonville. I'm going to rewind the clock even more. I remember when Hemming Plaza was the spot where the homeless would congregate.
True.
So when I see statistics saying, well, the homelessness is increasing by 40%, well, homelessness has been here in downtown Jacksonville. But I have a wondering, is what I'll call it. Because, there's a whole lot of development focused on downtown Jacksonville. There's talks of building the stadium of the future with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was recently announced that the University of Florida is preparing to build a graduate campus in downtown Jacksonville. The Four Seasons Hotel is slated to come to downtown Jacksonville. So my question is, where was all this energy to improve homelessness in the city of Jacksonville back in the 90s when Hemming Plaza was the hangout spot for the homelessness? The early 2000s. Where was it back then? Where was this energy to improve the climate of the homelessness in Jacksonville when Mayor Deegan laid out an $11 million plan to help improve the homelessness situation in Jacksonville? But the financial committee said, nah, we're going to hold back $10 million of that. You got to make it work with $1 million. Where was that energy? Or is it because of all of this corporate interest was coming into downtown Jacksonville to revitalize downtown Jacksonville? Now you say, well, you know what? We need to clean this up. Homelessness is an issue. Well, here's the problem. One of the reasons why I humbly believe homelessness has increased by 40% in the city of Jacksonville is because the cost of living has increased in the city of Jacksonville, but paychecks have not. Oh, and another thing, in terms of what's impacting the cost of living in the city of Jacksonville, because I spoke about this on the show a few weeks ago. There are several private equity firms that are driving the cost of living in the city of Jacksonville. They own over 70 properties in the city of Jacksonville. One of the UNF professors referred to it as the financialization of human shelter. They are profitizing off of the cost of living, an essential that we need to exist on this rock called Earth. But because the economy is shot, inflation is high, paychecks are down, people cannot afford the driving rate that private equity firms and other interest groups are causing here in the city of Jacksonville. And you'll wonder why homelessness is up 40%. It's not by coincidence, it's by design. But joining me in the studio right now is Stephen Johnson. So, Stephen, I came in with this hot and heavy segue to you, my guy.
Yes.
And you told me during the break that Florida Rising is going to cure all of it.
Right, one house at a time.
One house at a time. But Florida Rising, you do also advocate and help with housing and many of those situations here in Jacksonville. How is Florida Rising helping with the housing situation?
For us, we help by advocating.
Yeah.
We help by what are things that we can ask to be made law. One thing that we were really heavy on and wanted to fight for was the Tenant Bill of Rights, which really helped tenants on all different type of spectrums, whether it was a woman who was pregnant and a person's giving her an eviction note when a hurricane is coming.
Wow.
Or let's say when it comes to rent increase, we understand, hey, things go up, the economy, but can we have a rent increase cap by each time or each year or any time that you have to renew, that it reaches like you can only increase by 3% or whatever. Those are things that we advocated for. But unfortunately, as always with legislation, things got shot down. Things said no. Because like you said, it's about corporations. It's about greed. At the end of the day, why would I want to have somebody continue to pay rent at $800 when I know I got somebody from upstate New York or for another area who wants to come down here because New York and all them places are high and they can afford $1,200, $1,300, $2,000. And like you said, and I'm getting the extra money from that. So that's where that disconnect, comes from. We're still advocating for different actions, but what we're advocating for now is for a tenant landlord resource center. So a place that people, whether you're moving here to Jacksonville, whether you are trying to just going from one place to another, a place that you can go and vet, a place that you can say, okay, hey, who are these renters and what is their, how many people have they evicted, or what is their code violations, things of that nature. That's what we're focusing on. And then a registry, a tenant landlord registry. Just like people vet us and they check our credit score and things, we want a registry that we can,
I love that idea.
Give them a grade system and go from there.
Stephen, you shared so much great information today on the show that can help our community in a various number of ways. How can the community get involved with Florida Rising?
Oh, they can reach out to me under Stephen at floridarising.org, or also you can floridarising.org. For also under events, that's where we have our monthly community meetings. They're open to anybody, everybody. Y'all come on out. We'd love to have you be a part.
Well, thank you so much, Stephen, for hanging out with us today here on Front Page Jacksonville. Ladies and gentlemen, listen, we're not talking rocket science here. We are discussing issues that's going to require you to understand quantum physics. But it does require humanitarianism. And us advocating to the proper people in position is unfortunately also going to have to require us to up our game with understanding the game so that we can use it to our benefit to get the outcomes that we desire. If I don't have an opportunity to see or speak with you before the new year comes in, Happy New Year to you and yours. May it be peaceful, may it be safe, and may the next year, 2025, 20 and a quarter, as I've been calling it, may it be prosperous and beneficial for you and all of your loved ones. Stick around. Health Beat with Wanda P is coming up next. I'm Octavius Davis. I'll catch you next time. Peace.
Front Page Jacksonville, Sundays from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. For show episodes, go to hot1065fm.com. We are Hot 1065.